Hello, today we are going to solve May 2024 paper question number 6. Explain the terms allocation of overheads. So, charging costs to a cost center with costs which are completely associated with one specific cost center. If the cost, maintenance cost or the overhead cost is can be identified with one specific cost center, then it is allocation overheads. If the overhead cost cannot be identified to one specific cost center, or if the overhead cost is going to be used by different departments, then you will apportion it using the most appropriate basis because all the departments are getting the benefit. So example, the basis of apportionment can be floor area. Okay. Now the calculate the total overhead cost of operating the productive department by apportioning the service department overheads using continuous allotment. Sometimes I want to calculate the total overhead cost. Okay, this is a budget preparation. So in this, what the overhead costs which are deriving the benefit, such as service departments, design and administration, they will have less value of usage, okay, which will be using all other things like some labor hours or electricity or other things. Okay, so this will be removed and I will allocate that cost to machine and assembly, and then I will calculate the total overhead costs. Okay, so now this has to be apportioned using continuous allotment method. Let's calculate this. So the first one is given here, okay, 100,000. So for the continuous apartment, start writing with the allocation overheads, okay, 100,000. Then you have, okay, this is 50,000. These are allocated overheads, so you will start apportioning them. Okay, so here it is 70,000. And then you have design, which has an allocated over cost of 30,000 now, and this one, okay, is also having 30,000. Okay, certain costs have been identified. Now I will remove from the design and administration and put it under machine and assembly. Okay, that cost I'm going to take it and distribute it, but you can't directly just put it, so you will use some basis of apportioning and then you will transfer it. So here they have already given the proportion on which the usage is being happening. So for example, for the first one is the design. Okay, the design, let's start apportioning the design. So we have to reduce this cost of 30,000, okay, and then put it inside the machine, assembly and administration in the ratio of 40, 40 and 20. So 40% of 30,000. Okay, so let me put here. So the first one is 40% of 30,000. Okay, the same is 40% of 30,000. And then 20% of 30,000. So now let's put that cost. So the first one is, so 40% of 30,000 is going to be equal to 12,000. Okay, that is 12,000. Okay, and this one is going to be equal to 12,000, and here this value is going to be equal to 6,000. Okay, now let's put those costs here. So it is going to be equal to 12,000. This 30,000 has been taken and it has been divided in the proportion of 40, 40 and 20%. Okay, Next we have to add, okay, now we have to apportion the administration department. So let's see what is the cost it has. So now it has a cost of, okay, 36,000 totally. So it will have 30 plus 6,000, 36,000. Now I will have to remove this cost, okay, from the department. So I will apportion this cost. Okay, how will I apportion? I will apportion in the ratio of 50, 40 and 10 percentage. So let's write that. Okay, so this is going to be apportioned in the ratio of 50, 50, 40 and 10. Okay, the value I am going to apportion is 36,000. So let's write here 36,000, 36,000 and 36,000, and the values are going to be 50 percentage of 36,000, that is 18,000. So let's write here. Okay, this is 18,000, 18,000, and this is all 40 percentage of 36,000, that is 12,000. 40 percentage of 36,000, sorry, so let's calculate this. This is 14,400, and 10 percentage of 36,000, that is 3,600. Okay, so now let's write these values here. So the first one is going to be, so this is going to be 18,000. Okay, and then you have 14,400, 14,400, and the next one is 3,600. Okay, next we have to remove this cost. Okay, we have to remove 3,600 cost. So let's write for this 3,600. Now this is going to be apportioned on the basis of this one, okay, 40, 20 and 20. So I'll be apportioning 3,600. So write here first the values 3,600, 3,600 and 3,600. Okay, so now the values, let's calculate the values. So first one, so 40 percentage of, okay, 40 percentage of 3,600, that's going to be 1440, 1440, and the next one is 40 percentage of 3,600, it is also 1440, and the third one is 20 percentage of, okay, 3,600, that is equal to 720. Okay, that is equal to 720. So let's write that 1440. So now let's apportion this cost. So 1,440, okay, 1,440 and 720. Now I have to remove this cost. So 720 has to be removed. Okay, 720. Now 720 is going to be removed in this ratio 50, 40 and 10. Okay, so let's write that 720, 720 and this is 720. So the value is going to be equal to, So the first one is 50 percentage of 720, so that is equal to 360. The second one is 40 percentage of 720 is 288, and 10 percentage of 720 is 72. So let's write these values here. So removal is in the ratio. So the thing is 360, okay, 360, 288, 288 and 72, okay, 72. Now this 72 has to be removed, okay, I'll have to remove 72. So, and that you have to do it in the design ratio. So let's go for one more of this. So 72, 72, 72 has to be apportioned, okay, that cost has to be removed or distributed. So let's calculate the value. So 40 percentage of 72 is going to be equal to, so it is going to be equal to 29, okay, so it is 29. So let's write that 29. So this is 29, and this 20 percentage of 72 is 14, okay, so 29, 29 and 14. So let's write that 29, okay, 29 and 14. Now let's remove this 14, okay, value we have to remove. So 14, okay, so this is going to be removed in the ratio of 50, 40 and 10. So let's remove that thing in the ratio of 14, 14 and 14. So 50 percentage of 14 is going to be equal to 8, and 40 percentage of 14 is going to be equal to 6, and 10 percentage of 4 is going to be equal to 1.4, right, 1.4, that is approximately equal to, you can reduce it to 0, okay. So now let's split this. This is, okay, approximately, so 8, and this is going to be 6, okay, 6, and this is going to be equal to 0. Okay, now let's add the total cost, okay, which has been split to the machine and the overhead, this thing, okay. Now let's add up these values: 100,000 plus 12,000 plus 18,000 plus 1,440, 360, 29 and 8. So this value is going to be equal to 131,837, okay. And let's add up the assembly, okay, assembly total overhead cost. So this is going to be equal to 98,163. So 98,163. 98,163. This is the total overhead cost. Now calculate the overhead recovery rate to be charged by Abeer for each of the machining department and the assembly department, rounding to the nearest penny. So let's calculate overhead recovery rate per hour. So the overhead recovery rate, okay, is going to be equal to, okay, this per hour is the total cost, okay, that is nothing but the total overhead recovery cost, okay, we had calculated that cost and divided by the total number of hours that's going to be spent, right? So how many hours are they going to spend here? So that is the total hours was expected to work. Now let's calculate. Okay, so we know for the machining department, for machining for the machining department, it is going to be equal to, okay, overhead recovery rate per hour is going to be equal to we saw the total cost was 131837 131837 divided by the hours expected, total hours expected to work, okay, is machine hours you have to take. So 4250, okay, total machine hours, okay. And for the assembly department, okay, it's going to be equal to, so this value is going to be equal to 31, okay, that is equal to 31.02 pounds. Next we have for the machining department, for the assembly department, okay, for the assembly department it is going to be, the total cost is 98,163 divided by the hours spent, okay. So that is equal to 98,163 divided by the total machine hours is 900. So that value is going to be equal to, so it is going to be equal to 16.64 pounds, okay. So let's write that. Okay, for the thing. Then next question is, calculate the total under absorption or overheads or over absorption of overheads for the business of Abeer for the year ended 30th April 2024. Now what had happened is, you will calculate the total recovery rate, and the actual hours have been given, okay. The actual hours have been 4,440 and 650. Now we have to calculate the whether the actual overhead cost, okay, the actual overhead cost had become, uh, actual expenditure on overheads was 184,000, okay, 184,000, and the actual hours worked had become like this. So let's calculate this thing, okay, whether it had become under absorbed or over absorbed. So first one, we have to calculate overhead recovered, okay, overhead recovery rate for the actual hours. So for the machining department, it is going to be, okay, the machining department, what is my cost going to be if I use the budgeted rate, which is 31 point, okay, machining cost, okay. So machining cost is using budgeted rate, okay. So the budgeted overhead rate of 31, okay, 31.02 pounds, okay, that is we have to calculate. Now the labor hours have changed, so labor hours are 4,400 and 31.02, so that is equal to 136,488 pounds, 488 pounds, okay. So now for the machining department, okay. Now similarly for the assembly department, machining, the assembly cost, with a budgeted rate. Let's calculate. So for the assembly cost using budgeted rate of 16.64. So 16.64, it is going to be equal to 650 times 16.64. That value is going to be equal to 91,520. For assembling, we have to use labor hours. Oh,